What's up, everybody? It's Kyle with another episode of Unlocking Your Inner Strength, episode 310. 310 today. Excuse my voice, I sound a little bit like Alex Jones lately. Had laryngitis for the past week and a half, but feel fine. So, not really sure what's going on with that, but I'm sure this 72-hour fast will kick it. Um, so, let's see. I realize that I've talked in the past about the cycle diet, but I haven't gone into too much depth about it with most of you. The cycle diet is a way of eating that formed a lot of my philosophy around eating. And then there's elements of it that we could combine with the panda fasting. So let me just give you the backstory and my experiences and experiments with the cycle diet. So if we go way back to when I was in high school, reading Big Beyond Belief, first book I really read and ordered. I ordered it through a magazine. I don't even know if you could do that anymore. But reading a bodybuilding magazine, sent it in, the ad. And that book actually formulated a lot of my training philosophy, the full body, Bulgarian split style type of training. So it's going back to 1998. But in the back of that book, they had how to gain 10 pounds of muscle in like 10 days. I attempted that at that age, and I didn't last long. I lasted maybe 2 days. I wasn't used to the fasting aspect or the feeling that I wasn't getting enough food in. Because at that point, I was just eating as much as I could. And I would track everything because I wanted to put on size. And that continued for throughout college, really. But that initial 10 pounds in 10 days was based in the cycle diet philosophy, even though it wasn't called that. And then in another book, one of Bill Phillips' books, I believe, was reading about the anabolic cycling diet, which is kind of similar. Now, if you go to college, when I was in college at the University of Delaware studying fitness, had some nutrition courses as well. But my senior year in college was when I was, my girlfriend broke up with me, my first girlfriend. So that was kind of heartbreaking, but I used it to inspire myself as far as at that point I was probably 250 pounds and I was pretty jacked, pretty solid. But I wanted to get lean for uh, whether it was spring break or the summer. So I started dieting, quote unquote. But I always kept a cheat day in. I love to eat. I'm a food connoisseur. I'm a foodie. Devin will tell you when we go out to eat, I usually order what winds up being the best meal at the table. And it's nothing extravagant usually. I just know what's going to taste good, what foods to combine, things of that nature. Combine that with I have already a tremendous appetite for eating. So anyhow, I'm going through my senior year of college. I bring this theory I have about cheat days, right? So there wasn't much out there on this. It was just me experimenting and wanting to get results, but also keep the pleasurable foods, the drug foods like your sundaes, brownie sundaes, cookies, all this stuff within my eating plan. So once a week, all out eat day, cheat day, whatever you want. And I'm still getting leaner. Bring this, what I've documented to the director of nutrition at University of Delaware for the nutrition realm of this college, people that wanted to study that. And I thought he was going to give me some insight. And he had no clue what I was talking about. And that's when it really hit me that I was on my own figuring this stuff out. If I was really going to get into the weeds and the nitty gritty of nutrition and how it actually worked to putting on muscle and losing fat, that I was going to have to figure it out on my own or find mentors that found a similar thing to be true. So throughout that summer, right when I graduated, working at Rutgers football strength and conditioning with JB, I continued that process, and I was pretty lean. I've got pictures somewhere, and that was when the seed first got planted in my head as far as competing in bodybuilding. But I'd keep my cheat day in every week. Usually it was Saturdays at that point. And I was really strict on the other days. Now, the first time I competed in 2004, 2004 was my first show, 2005 was my second show. After the show, so the first show I went basically 4 months without a single cheat meal, quote unquote. I was about 1,600 calories a day for 4 months straight without cheating once. But right after the contest, going out to eat with Leo, my grandfather, I'm talking about that weekend or whatever, I noticed that I could not get full. For example, we'd go to IHOP, and I would eat like 3 meals, and I'd already eaten that day, but I'd be like, man, I could keep eating. What's going on here? And for a short period of time, I was still able to maintain my shape. Then obviously you have the spillover. You do that for 3-4 days in a row, even when you're that lean, you're just going to get fat. To the point where the first few times I competed with this concept in your mind, I would gain 35 to 40 pounds in the first 4 days after a contest. To the point where I thought I had to go to the hospital at one point when I was playing softball because I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest. My legs were swollen. So nonetheless, I realized, okay, what is going on here that I can still look a certain way for a certain period of time, eating whatever I want. Can you do this more intensely? So at this point, too, I'm teaching in Bridgewater at the elementary school, Middletown Elementary School. Every break I had, I would pretty much study this stuff. And I come across this guy, Scott Abel, who was the first coach I ever hired to coach myself. He actually had a DVD, which I still have, called The Cycle Diet. And I'm reading about it. I'm like, man, this is fascinating. How to stay lean year-round while having your cake, and eating it too. So I start studying that. And I start incorporating that. So as I'm getting ready for contests in 2007, 8, 2014, that's when I combined it with fasting. I'm still combining this concept of being able to eat what I want on any, one day a week, feel that urge. And there was a lot of physiological stuff going on too that I'm going to talk about while staying lean and continuing to lose fat. So that is something to keep in mind. So going through Scott's product, his DVD, having him coach me, I realized, okay, I could stay lean, but on these cheat days, on the other days I had to be in this deficit, right? So on these cheat days, I would have to consume, or I would consume anywhere between 15 and 20,000 calories, which sounds inhuman, like not like a mortal being could do that. But again, I have a huge appetite as it is. So I start doing that, right? And one of the things you're trying to do when you have something called leptin in your body fat. As you get leaner, leptin levels drop, which signals you to become hungrier and eat more, right? It's tied into other hunger hormones like ghrelin, the main one I normally talk about with Panda. But leptin levels drop. So you have to reset that leptin level. How can you do that? And also, when you get to a certain point of being lean, your nervous system starts to go wacky. Hormones are all over the place. You're in like a survival mode. So according to Scott's research, it would take about 55 calories per pound of body weight to reset or spike leptin levels. So that was one of the things that I was attempting to do within that. So you have to be in something called supercompensation to apply this, meaning where your muscles are really going to suck up all these nutrients coming in, storing glycogen, which is water combined with carbohydrate. So storing glycogen, intramuscular fat. And after these massive cheat days, I would be up like 12 to 15 pounds in one night, but I would lose that by about midweek, and then I'd usually be lower by the end of the week, and then I'd repeat it. I ran into some issues with that though, mainly food hangovers. Right, I would get these food hangovers, which is the first time that really exposed me to the concept that food is a drug. And I would basically be in a food coma by that night. And me and Devin were dating at that point, and she'd be like, "Man, I don't know if this is sustainable. What are you doing?" But I would look forward to it so much. But eventually, I stopped doing that. Now you come back around to 2014 when I started fasting. Now I was able to maintain my shape throughout the majority of summer, bodybuilding shape, through fasting and utilizing the cycle diet. And I'll tell you a story that I have in the Panda Diet book just to illustrate the point. It was August 10th, it was my birthday. We were driving down to the Outer Banks. So we didn't have any kids yet. We had Matina, our silver lab. So on the way down, again, it's cheat day. It's like Christmas for me. Wake up, we're ready to go. We go to Dunkin' Donuts in town, get a dozen donuts, like the double chocolate or blueberry, like the real heavy ones. I ate them before we got to the next town over. The whole dozen. I'm driving too. So we're going through Princeton, keep going. I wound up eating, like, Devin had made a whole quart of like rice pudding that I ate. Ate a whole bag of Butterfingers, and I think a whole thing of Girl Scout cookies. And then by then it's about 11 a.m. and we stop at a Waffle House. I love Waffle House. And we go in, it's packed, sitting up at the counter, and decide that, okay, I'm still hungry. We still got another 4 hours on our drive. And I'm trying to debate to pace myself. So I order right out the gate 3 peanut butter waffles. And if you ever had a Waffle House waffle, they're big, they're filling. So I say 3, and the lady looks at me, and I say, I got eggs too, and like a coffee. She said, what? She goes, I'm sorry, I thought you said 3. I said, no, I said 3. I said, I might get more too. It's a real sweet lady. She's like, no, nobody's ever eaten more than 2 of these here. Come on. And Devin looks at, she goes, he could do it. Just, listen to him, put in his order. Then she starts telling people behind the counter. So that's drawing attention, which I don't like. Again, it's my birthday too. So anyway, the food comes out. They're watching. I house that, like, no problem. So I'm about on my last one, and I say, all right, give me 2 more. Now she's high-fiving people, and people are starting to gather around. I'm like John Candy, I feel like, right, with the old 96er in the great outdoors. So then I proceed to eat those. Now the manager comes out. He says, listen, if you do 2 more, I'm going to buy your meal for you and your wife. Yeah, we still had 4 hours to drive. And it wasn't even noon yet, and it was my birthday, so I knew we were going to have a birthday cake and pizza and all that night. Needless to say, I declined the final 2. He did give me a Waffle House hat, which I have a picture of, me at the bar, the counter, with my Waffle House hat on. And I couldn't explain to people how I was doing this because it was just it would take too much time. Nor would they really care. But this would be a frequent spectacle anytime me and Devin would go out to eat, where people just couldn't fathom what I was eating. And at that point too, I added in a midday spike, right? So like Wednesday nights or Thursday nights, like 3 hours, because I was, at that point I needed even more to consume with the way I was eating on the other days to really spike my system. And like just was it 2 weeks ago I put up, and I'm not doing the cycle diet right now, and you could incorporate this within the Panda. It's very easy to do. But I went out after a 72-hour fast. I did 3 double burritos at Chipotle. So the eating capacity is there, right? So you have to have an eating capacity to perform this anyhow. And then it just gets enhanced the more that your body is craving this, the more insulin sensitive you get. The cycle diet is really about partitioning where the food that you eat is going to go. Is it going to go to body fat or stored in the muscles and the liver as glycogen or intramuscular fat? But that was the basis of a lot of how I realized you can be in these extremes when it comes to eating, right? And the importance of eating enough, on a weekly basis, let's say. So that's really the history of the cycle diet. Thank goodness I found Scott Abel. He taught me a lot of my training methodologies too, or inspired it. Just a great, great coach, really outside the box thinker. Taught me the cycle diet, and that's that. So if there's people out there that don't want to fast necessarily, but they want to really get lean, but still have things they want to indulge in. Now I'll tell you this: to get into super compensation mode, when you're on that journey, you're not having these cheat days every week. You have to be in super compensation mode first, which can be assessed through things like biofeedback. What's your appetite like? What's your performance like? What's your hunger levels like? How lean are you? Things of that nature. So it's not something you just jump into. I recommend for most people to have a cheat meal every week, just for psychological reasons. And if you don't need it, you don't do it. But that's the way it goes. And this taught me a lot about how the body stores energy in terms of food and glycogen, and how we can manipulate that, and how we can be lean pretty much all the time. And that's something I found to be on a micro level with the Panda diet. I could have a lot more leeway with what I eat and how much I eat because how infrequent I should say I'm eating, which is a cool thing. So that's the cycle diet history. I could go on and on about more of my eating escapades. Maybe I'll do that in another episode because there are a lot of funny ones and a lot of just wow moments for people that got to witness it. It's poor Devin. She gets to put up with this when we go out to eat. She knows too when I'm like pushing the limit, when I start getting the food sweats. That's when I'm hitting my capacity. But usually that's like well into the meal. And again, it's probably a meal I could eat for 3-4 people, no problem. All right, so that's what I got for you today. We got a Last Diet You'll Ever Need webinar coming up. I'll be putting on May 9th. I'll put the link in the comments section. It's free. Register for a spot if you want. I'll be breaking down fasting in much great detail. And we got Panda number 11 starting May 16th. Hit the like button, hit the share button. I'll catch you guys soon. Thanks for the support.